This is Guns and Butter.
There's something happening, yeah. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there.
And Iceland, essentially, the government of England is saying, hey, you're private kleptocrats, you're thieves, you're criminals, have money to our bankers. Our bankers have made your criminals huge amounts of loans. The government has to tax the people to pay this money that the criminals have taken. Now, this is neoliberalism writ large, and it's an abhorrent theory, an abhorrent principle, an illegal principle, and Iceland has been the first country to reject it and say we are not going to go into poverty so that our kleptocrats can pay your thieves.
I'm Bonnie Faulkner. Today on Guns and Butter, Dr. Michael Hudson. Today's show, Iceland recovering from neoliberal disaster. Michael Hudson is a financial economist and historian. He is president of the Institute for the Study of Long-Term Economic Trend, a Wall Street financial analyst, and distinguished research professor of economics at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. His 1972 book, Super Imperialism, The Economic Strategy of American Empire, is a critique of how the United States exploited foreign economies through the IMF and World Bank. He is also author of The Myth of Aid and Global Fracture, The New International Economic Order. Dr. Hudson has written many articles on the current global financial crisis. Today we discuss his most recent article, Recovering from Neoliberal Disaster, Why Iceland and Latvia Won't and Can't Pay the EU for the Kleptocrats' Ripoffs. The Financial Times published a column by Dr. Hudson in its August 16th issue on Iceland's financial crisis and its pushback against the IMF and World Bank entitled, Iceland's Debt Repayment Limits Will Spread. Michael Hudson, welcome.
Thank you.
You have recently returned from a trip to Iceland and have an article running in today's Financial Times entitled, Iceland and Latvia Can't Pay, so they won't. The Icelandic Parliament, the Althing, met this weekend, and you have said that the changes this weekend were epoch-making and have changed the whole global financial system. What happened in the Icelandic Parliament?
For the first time since the 1920s, a debtor country has insisted that the debt be written down to reflect the actual ability to pay. Iceland said that if it agreed to Britain's illegal demands for reimbursement for Prime Minister Gordon Brown's mistakes and bungling of the IceSave affair, that one-third of the Icelandic population would have to emigrate. The country would have to sell off all of its property, probably to England, and the country would be reduced to neo-feudalism. And they said, this is absolutely ridiculous. No democracy is going to go along with this. We insist that the debts reflect the Icelandic economy's ability to pay, as we've been insisting for the last year. Britain has said, if you don't pay, we're going to strong-arm the IMF, we're going to strong-arm the World Bank, not to lend you any money, we're going to bankrupt you, and we're not going to let you in Europe unless you pay for Gordon Brown's mistakes. And Europe has said, we don't care about Iceland, we don't care about new members, we're letting all of our financial policy being run by neoliberals in England. Europe is basically a financial entity, not a social entity, not a social democracy. There is no room for democracy in finance. You must make the central bank independent. We don't care what the Parliament says. We are going to do what is good for England. And that is the European overall position. I expect that Britain and Holland will reject the conditions that Iceland has said, and this will create a crisis within the common market, within Europe.
Well, let's back up and take a look at this. Now, what exactly is IceSave, and what was the scam there?
A little after 2000, neoliberals from the World Bank and the Washington Consensus went to Iceland and said, we can make you a more efficient economy. We want you to give all the property to the richest people in Iceland. Just give away the banks. You don't need a government bank. Just give it away to the private people, to the rich political insiders. So they created three banks, the Landsbank and the Glittner Bank and the Kaupthing Bank. And each of these were controlled by local oligarchs in Iceland who derived most of their power from the neo-estates set up way long ago in feudalism, except for Kaupthing that went in business with a group of Russian offshore criminals and operated as sort of an extension of the Russian mafia. So the banks are privatized. Kaupthing way overpaid to buy a British bank and purchased it. Glittner had some offices abroad, but the real problem is Landsbank. And that set up not a foreign affiliate in Britain, but branches, and they were called Icesave. Essentially, the people who ran the bank found, look, we can go and we can get deposits, and we can raise 2.6 billion euros. That's about $4 billion they raised with deposits. They then took the deposits and they paid them to themselves. And in conjunction with some British kleptocrats that were connected to Kaupthing, they used the deposits to make loans to the big shareholders of the banks to buy shares in the banks to bid them up in a kind of Ponzi scheme. They thought, if we take the deposits from bankers, from just charities and people in London who want high interest rates, and we use these deposits to lend to ourselves to buy the bank stock, we'll be rich in no time because then we can sell the bank stock that we have at a profit. So this basically was a scam. Well, finally, the Landsbank tried to convert the branch into a affiliate which would be overseen by the Bank of England and the bank regulatory authorities in England. England dragged its feet until finally it said, wait a minute, we think that there are crooks running the bank. We're shocked to find out gambling is going on here, and decided to close it down. So the Icelandic insiders immediately sold their shares in the bank and emptied out the bank deposits to lend to themselves. And so Britain then closed down Icesave, and instead of following European law, they decided to bail out the depositors. Well, what happened in early October was the Icelandic banks, being neoliberal, didn't have a government deposit insurance system. They had a private bank deposit insurance system that was about as adequately funded as AIG insurance was over here in the United States. Way underfunded, but the Icelandic authorities wrote to Britain and said, well, the government is going to stand behind what we owe the depositors, that is about 20,000 euros per deposit. Alistair Darling went to a public interview and said Iceland is refusing to pay, and Gordon Brown closed down Icesave. And when you close down a foreign branch, the deposit insurance agency that's involved, in this case Iceland's, has 3 months to pay off depositors, and under special circumstances, such as an economy-wide breakdown, it can ask for 2 more 3-month periods of delay. So the depositors really shouldn't have been repaid for at least 9 months. This would have given the Icelandic banks a chance to go after the criminals who had looted them, many including the British criminals who looted them, and could have recovered some of the money. Gordon Brown did not permit them to recover the money from his own criminals. He immediately turned around, and by the end of October, using his own funds, and the same happened in the Netherlands, they paid the depositors out of British funds. Well, you can understand why, because at this time, the Royal Bank of Scotland had gone under after Northern Rock also had gone under, and the British bank management was so hopelessly incompetent that Gordon Brown didn't want yet another incompetent bank failure on his order. But then he said, I've broken the law. I have illegally paid all the depositors to make myself look good. Now, you Icelanders, will you go into 200 years of peonage, sell off your country, and just emigrate and leave the island to be sold so that I can look good? Needless to say, the Icelandic Parliament said, are you crazy? We are going to make an agreement to pay, subject to in court, they have to say that it's our obligation to pay, not your obligation. Secondly, we're insisting that this is a sovereign debt. You're asking Iceland's government to pay for the debts run up by the kleptocrats, by the crooks who Gordon Brown is protecting. You want us to pay for the private crooks that you need